Welcome to the first episode of Two Truths and a Life, which is a new little passion project that Tiani and I have put together to try and bring some fresh perspective and I guess a new voice to the world. It's something we've been wanting to do for a little while now, and we just decided to pull the trigger and make it happen.
I know, literally in the last week.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking about it for a little while now, but I think it's actually a really cool concept because, especially the name itself, right? What that represents to us, and ChatGPT definitely gave us some help with that. But babe, do you want to talk a bit more about what that means to us?
Yeah, I think it really reflects our relationship and separately our lives, like two truths, which represents both of our lives, which has been huge. We've both lived really, really big lives. And then two truths and a life. And it's just something that I find interesting is we've both lived really, really big lives, and we've somehow navigated now to this relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. It's funny, right? Because I guess the two truths is like, these are our truths. These are two separate lives that we've lived. And it's funny, like we have lived completely separate lives, but almost lives. I said lies. Two completely separate lives.
You keep saying lies.
I know. Two truths and a lie. That's the game, right? It's a nice little pun, play on words. But, we have lived these two completely separate lives. Like, obviously, being on opposite ends of, I guess, experiences, but in some way we've also lived the same life to some degree.
Very similar
a
experiences.
Different area, right? A different way of experiencing it.
It's a different angle, I think.
Yeah,
from
most
both
definitely.
sides.
Most definitely. And I guess that's the beautiful thing. It's like we've literally watched from talking about our lineage and our journeys through life, how we've both been like this, right? So we've been so far apart, and now over time, we've slowly gotten closer together to now where we've met, and we're just on the same journey. Yeah. Both wanting to create big impact, wanting to, really just change the way that humanity is, for women and men.
And I think that gets us to the next point of why we're doing the podcast as well, is like now we're building and creating this life together, but we share the same interest of making an impact in the world and helping and healing humanity.
I think that's a really good point that you have touched on there. And it's like, we don't have to have the same beliefs to a T. We don't have to have the same values to a T. But I guess we both have the same vision of where we want to go. And that's really important, because if you're not growing with someone, you're growing apart. And I guess this is like, within any relationship. And I'm sure that a lot of people listening have experienced that. And I mean, you've probably experienced that in previous relationships. I know you've experienced that in previous relationships. I've definitely experienced that in previous relationships. And I guess the big thing as well is the action that's taken behind it, because you can speak a big game. However, it's like the actions speak a lot louder than the words that you say.
That's important to me.
I know it's very important to you. We spoke about this, I think, on one of our first dates, actually, integrity and, being a man of your word, or a woman of your word, if you like.
Yeah. And
how important that is. And I guess you've experienced that in previous relationships, as have I, where, our partners talk about wanting certain things. However, the actions are completely irrelevant to what they're saying, right?
But I've also been that person too. So I can't really point the finger and say, okay, look at my past relationships and they've not done that, because I've definitely been that person in the past as well. For sure. But
what changed for you? Like, what changed for you for you to shift from being the person that would talk a big game and not follow through to then being like, you know what, I'm going to pull the fucking trigger and do something about it?
Well, I guess I found in life that no one else is going to do it for us.
Ain't that the truth?
So, yeah, and in the times that I've ever expected or, what's the word, left it up to other people, it's never really worked out the way that I intended it to. So I don't know if it's unhealthy to think this way, but like I've always been like, if I do it myself, I know it's going to get done properly.
I think this is really interesting. I mean, even just touching on our most recent journey with the plant medicine. I mean, we both got shown how, collaboration is so important. And that's actually maladaptive to think that we can do everything alone. Although it has served us to some degree, it does become a habit or a pattern of behaviour which doesn't serve us long term, especially as a business owner, right? You and I both, you've had people working under you in the past. I'm in the process of now bringing on other coaches to work with me. And if I was to think that I could do everything alone, then
crazy.
Number one, you're going to get burnt out, right? And so many of the men that I work with, this is where they come to me from. It's, feeling like they have to do everything alone, struggling to delegate, but that's all ego as well, But ego inherently isn't a bad thing. It's something that's there to protect us because of previous experiences we've had, especially in business or in relationships, whatever it might be. And I mean, for you, if I can speak into your relationships in the past a little bit there, it's like you've always, to some degree, when you've wanted to, obviously, let's say have business ventures and things like that, you've had to almost push yourself, right?
In what context do you mean? Push
Like,
myself in, like with the relationship or the business?
With the business.
Yeah. Well, look, I think that I've always been someone that I've always wanted more. So because of that, like I've always strived to be the best. And I know that if I really put everything into it, I know that I will get to where I want to go. So I wouldn't really say in past relationships, like definitely I think in a healthy way, but there's obviously been unhealthy relationships, but I was never in business with those relationships. So the one previous relationship, definitely, but I think it was coming from a healthier place when it came to what I wanted to achieve in Actually, no, I lie. There were some unhealthy factors there, but all in all, like just still wanted the best for me.
Yeah.
And but in saying that, like I take a lot of accountability for my actions. I know that I'm not just achieving things because of other people. So everything that I have in my life, especially when it comes to business, I've achieved because I've wanted it. I've put that goal there. Sometimes the goalpost might have had to move for whatever reason, but that's always because of me and what I've wanted.
Yeah, most definitely. Like, so I've never really been in relationships where anyone that I've been with has ever been, I guess, on the team or wanting to help me to create or build. They've always had their own agenda or not even been driven at all. Once again, it just shows the level of, I guess, awareness that I had when being in those relationships in the past. And obviously they served me at the time, but it was one thing that I found, which I know by this time in any relationship I've been in the past, I've always felt like I've outgrown that partner. Whereas with you, it's definitely very different because you're on the same path.
Yeah.
Right. You're wanting to do the same things. You're wanting to go in the same direction, which is, it's a blessing and definitely a breath of fresh air. But I guess that's also, there's a flip side to that as well. There's polarity, right? It's amazing.
I was just about to say that.
But it also means that we're both so highly driven and we're always wanting more. So I guess that's going to be something interesting for us to navigate. And I mean, for the listeners out there, like this will probably be something that you'll see us talking about time and time again is how we do start to navigate that in relationships, especially for, two people that are high performers.
I think we touched on this the other day, and something I voiced to you that something I'm struggling with, which I'm sure we'll get into another podcast with the masculine and feminine energy.
Most definitely.
That's something I want to touch on, but more so like we're working in separate companies. So basically we're going in the same place long term, but in both companies of where we're currently at, we're still working on things individually. So that means double the amount of stress. That means double the amount of work. You know what I mean? Whereas
double the problems.
Yeah, but it is. And it's like,
it really is.
The way that I've always, well, this is just a story I've told myself as well, but coming into a partnership, how much easier it would be if you're both working on the same thing. And that wouldn't work for everybody, don't get me wrong. I completely understand that, but that's definitely something that I thought that I would do in relationships. So it's just really interesting now to be navigating somebody with their own vision and dreams, which I love. I actually love that.
Oh yeah, you're my biggest fangirl. It's great. Like you give me the best support, like, and I guess vice versa as well. Like I'm all on board with everything you're doing.
I just want to see you win.
Likewise, babe, likewise. And that's a beautiful thing in itself. But you're 100% right. Like, it definitely does add another element to the relationship and the dynamic there that we have to navigate, right? Then add kids on top of that and navigating a blended family, which is something we've been definitely, I wouldn't even say struggling, we've been dealing with as of late, which has been challenging at the best of times, but also such a blessing.
100%. I think that it'll have its challenges throughout the way, but because we've got such a strong foundation as a couple, I don't think it's anything that will, like, again, yes, there'll be things that come up, but we are such a strong couple, so I don't think it'll be anything we can't handle.
Okay, so talking into that, what do you think are the biggest elements or factors that have helped us to build this strong foundation? Because I mean, especially coming into this, we both were very sure of what we wanted, which was not a partner from the get-go. I'm not interested in anyone, but if I was, it'd be this, and this.
If I was, and that it just somehow popped up.
The universe is really interesting, isn't he or she? Isn't it?
She.
Yeah. The universe, the way that it provides when you ask, and sometimes, it's
surrender,
testing.
right?
Surrender, right? But that's exactly what this is. It's been full full wholehearted lie down and surrender
100%.
and see what comes. But
I
know
love
you
this
definitely
subject.
struggle with this. I know you definitely struggle with this. But what do you think's been the biggest factors that have helped us to build this solid foundation? Because I mean, I might be a bit biased here, but I dare say that we have built quite a strong foundation in quite a short period of time, and we're both very, very sure of where we're going and had a lot of conversations that a lot of people have probably held off. Like I said to you the other week, I had a friend that was in a relationship for like 8 or 9 months, and that ended for no other reason than the fact that his partner didn't want kids, you know, and he was getting to the point where he did want kids. And for me, I'm like, well,
why wouldn't you have that conversation?
Why wouldn't you have that conversation earlier on, you know? And people talk about, oh, you should be talking about babies on the second or third date. You shouldn't be, of course not. You're not going to put a baby in a partner on the first or second date. You might do.
Maybe.
You might do whatever you're up to, you know? But like, at the end of the day, like, you shouldn't have those conversations, but why not? Like, who decides what normal is in a relationship?
Well, look, personal preference. I'm a very open person, and so are you. So I think with the people that we are, that was just something that was going to organically happen anyway. But I do understand that not everybody is like that. But the thing is, I love this subject. It's because everything comes back to self, right? And I think people not having those conversations can sometimes come down to that they don't even know what they want or who they are.
I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly, right? There's a lot of people come into relationships without exactly like that, knowing who they are, and then they start to find themselves, or knowing what they want, right?
Or what they want out of the relationship. Like,
or even out of their own life,
yeah,
right? Without purpose, without direction, without knowing where they're going, right? And so how can you build a foundation without first knowing where you want to go?
What were you looking for coming into the relationship?
I was looking for nothing, but you sort of just showed up. No, honestly, so I said this to myself, and it was literally only the day before I met you, right? Because I'd come out of a relationship and I was like, okay, I'm done with this fucking around. I'm done with this, you know, playing low when it comes to relationships. If I'm going to be in a relationship, it's going to be with the right woman. She needs to, first of all, understand who I am, what I do, and respect that. And also respect that my business isn't just my business, it's my purpose. What I do for work, working with men and helping them to break free self-sabotage, that's what I'm put on this planet to do. And so, unfortunately, to some degree, that's going to come first a lot of the time.
It's not unfortunate.
No, that's right. But the thing is, like, you understand that. I've had a lot of partners in the past that don't, right? And that's also then pulled me away.
Yeah.
Trying to people please, keep everyone else happy. The second thing was you'd have to understand, and what my partner would have to understand what it's like to have kids, or either have kids of her own. And I was really sort of hesitant to even come into a relationship with someone that already had kids, because I'm like, how's this going to work? I already know how much hard work one kid is, right? The third thing was...
Have three.
That's like, now we have three. And the third thing was just someone that knows who they are and is open with communication, and I guess when it comes to insecurities and things like that, is very aware of the things that she has in her life that she needs to work on, but is willing to do the work. And then the fourth thing, the most important one, is she's a woman of her word. When she says she's going to do something, she fucking does it. Because I've been in so many relationships in the past where they talk a big game, and then as soon as push comes to shovel, things get hard. They go, it's too hard for me. I'm not doing it. You know, when it comes to potentially business, or when it comes to making decisions, or when it comes to whatever it might be that's going on in their life, they turn and run.
And we fall in love with the potential.
That's right. And I found, because in the past I'd fallen in love with the potential. So I literally said that these are what I need in a woman. She'd have to understand what it's like to be in business. She'd have to understand what it's like to have kids. She'd have to, you know, be chasing her dreams, having her own life, but then also be a woman of integrity, you know, true to her word, true to her values, true to herself.
I guess you can tick all them off the list.
I don't know, can I? And then next day I was speaking at a women's business event, and lo and behold, I met Tiani. And here we are 6 months later, right? But for me, it was getting really clear on exactly what I wanted in a woman, right? It was really getting really clear on that, because I had so many relationships where I just go through the relationship because it was comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, they filled a couple of the needs. Physical, emotional to some degree, you know, but...
And I think sometimes, like, because I've done the same thing, and we've had this conversation before, it's time we pick a partner with where we're at the time.
That's right.
And I've made that mistake in the past, because I've gone through so many seasons and versions of myself that isn't actually who I am on a bigger scale.
Or even at an authentic level.
Yeah.
You're still peeling back the layers of the onion, right?
Yeah. So yeah, talk us through a little bit about what happened with your shift then when you met me.
Okay, so I guess there was a lot of resistance at first, as there was for you as well.
A little bit.
Yeah, literally, it was like hugging a bloke. she was so stuck in her masculine that I was like, okay, bye, thank you. And like even the day I met you, I was like, I felt there was energy there. You felt there was energy there. You knew there was energy.
So weird.
There was so much energy there. Even when you walked up the stairs and you looked at me first, you literally looked away. You're like, nope, not doing this.
I'm not doing it.
Not doing it. And then on the first day, I was like, no. I made a promise to myself that if I and we get into a relationship, it'd have to be with the right woman. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen organically. I was going to ask for your number, but I'm like, no, I'm not going to ask for your number. And then I had this skydiving event that was meant to be on the next day that got cancelled. And so
we had a breakfast the next morning.
There was a breakfast that was on. And so I was like, you know what?
Also, I wasn't going to go because my mum and dad were just looking after the kids for that day on the Saturday. And on the Sunday, I usually go and take the kids somewhere and do something. But I wasn't going to go to the breakfast because I had the kids. And usually when I do have the kids, I say no to those things. So
Yeah. And so anyways, long story short, the woman who was running the event, Tamara, she was like, hey, she asked me if I wanted to come to the breakfast, but I said I couldn't because of the skydiving event. Skydiving event got cancelled, and I was like, oh, you know what, I'll go to that breakfast instead. So I went to the breakfast, and lo and behold, first person that was there was Tiani with her 2 children. And I was like, right. And I saw you as a mother, and I was like, wow. Like, I love seeing you in this energy and seeing you more in your feminine, being able to be a mother rather than being the businesswoman that you had been the day before. And I left it till like as I was leaving, and I was like, you know, I'm going to grab her number and see where things go. And here we are, you know. But the thing that shifted was, I guess, the surrendering.
Yeah.
Just really just like going, okay, cool. Well, this is being given to me for a reason, but not attaching anything to it. And just going with it.
Yeah.
Just going with it, because in the past I would have tried to force things in the past.
Tell me what your first thought was.
Of you?
Yeah.
Damn, girl.
No, you would have had to think about something.
What do you mean?
Like, say 3 things that you thought about as a person, like how I held myself. What did you think?
Okay, well, sitting down, and it was the way you communicated. After I'd done my speech, I sat down next to you, and you just openly said, like, you know, I've been on the other side of, you know, drug abuse. I've been on the other side of that. I've been a partner of drug dealers in the past, and you just openly communicated with me. So the first thing I noticed was just how easily it was to communicate with you and how open you were, because I've definitely had a lot of experiences with women where, you know, they're very closed off, whether that's a protective thing or whether that's because they don't know who they are and they're insecure. But the way you showed up was the first thing. The second thing was talking about, this is the big thing that stood out to me. I was talking to you about how I was in the process of starting a charity for this big event I was putting on. And you're like, oh yeah, I'm starting a charity too to help women and children who have been in domestic violence situations. And I was like, so she wants to help people. That there says leaps and bounds about someone, you know, coming at it from the right place. And obviously when we had that conversation, I could feel the energy behind it as well, because you'd been there, and it's like you wanted to help people that have been in your situation. And that's what I do for work, you know, for a job. So I was like, okay, cool, there's alignment there. And then I think the third thing was just like, she's hot as fuck. I was like, she's pretty smoking as well. Like, what's wrong with her? Where's her red flags?
Of course you were looking for the things that were wrong with me.
So this is the thing. And I looked for that for the first 2 or 3 months.
I remember you saying that.
I looked for what was wrong with you for the first 2 or 3 months, because it's always like it's too good to be true. But that was also because there was a lack of trust within myself, because in the past I'd looked past red flags and I'd looked past behaviours and things, and obviously it always came back to bite me in the ass. So it wasn't that I didn't trust you, it was I didn't trust myself.
Your intuition.
Didn't trust my intuition to be able to make the decision to pull back or pull away.
Yeah.
Right. What about you?
What did I think about you?
Yeah, what were your thoughts about me? And
well,
what were you like coming into this relationship?
Yeah. Look, I had just freshly came out of a relationship probably about, I think it was like 3 or 4 months prior, like completely separate. And I had a major internal shift. I'm a relationship person. I've been in relationships most of my adult life. And this one kind of like after we separated, I just had this shift where I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm so done. Throughout that last relationship, when it was in the breakdown stages, I was already going absolute hammer and toe with business. So I didn't really have the time to even think about like relationship or men, or it was just, I remember thinking, all right, this is the time for me. And I actually wrote down my ideal list, not that I wanted it to, pop up anytime soon. It was more so I just wanted to get really clear with what I wanted in life and out of life. Especially when it comes to a partner, because a partner and having, a strong foundation of a relationship is important to me. So I did all of that, all the ideal list, but I didn't really think anything of it.
Hang on, stop for a second. Let's rewind that for people that don't know what the ideal list is. I think this is actually a really good exercise for anyone that's listening, because we already spoke about, a lot of people coming into relationships and not knowing about what they want. And so there's a perfect example of actually getting really clear, because I know a lot of people that have never done that in their life. They've never actually gotten clear of what they want in a partner. They know what they don't want, but they don't know what they do.
Yeah. Well, again, similar to you, I've experienced relationships that don't have kids. And that's usually one massive breakdown in a relationship is they don't really understand, somewhat get envious that you spend a lot of your time with your kids, and they just don't know how to deal with it. So the thing is, I didn't actually think that I would ever be with somebody with kids. I genuinely just didn't think that was for me. But after the last relationship, I was more open to it, because I knew that somebody with kids would understand what it's like. But not only that, in business, when I've been in business so like multiple times in my life, and it's something that I absolutely thrive in and I love it. And as you know, being in business, if someone doesn't have a business of their own, they don't understand. They don't understand what you're going through. Yeah. Especially
why you're in front of the computer at 8 o'clock at night, or why you're getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to start 100%. Work.
Yeah. And then add kids into the mix. It's like the time that I have for a partner is definitely not consistent. It has to be balanced, and they don't understand that. So I really just looked and had a lot of self-reflection after my last relationship, and the reason why I did do the ideal list, which like you said, to explain it a little bit more. So what I did is I kind of just looked at my repetitive patterns in relationship. If I felt like I was dating the same person but just a different face every single time. So I was like, all right, there's a common denominator here, and it's me. Why am I attracting these men, and what do I need to change? Essentially, I looked at the gap and I was like, look who I am now, look at my habits and my patterns as my daily life. And where do I want to be? And then bridge that gap between that, because I know that I'm not going to find the man of my dreams until I'm there, because I'm attracting this type of man, which means that's me, and in some way, shape or form, I'm attracting them for a reason. So I wanted to make sure that everything that I did in my daily life meant that I was heading towards this woman that I've always wanted to be. And I genuinely just surrendered, and I was just, what, if I find a partner along the way on this journey, amazing. But if I don't, for the first time in my whole life, I was so okay with being alone. And I just surrendered to that. And I never meant that to my absolute core. I never meant that more than when I said it to myself after that relationship breakdown. So yeah, I definitely had an internal shift prior to meeting you. And like you said, I had a lot of resistance, because I also am not a really selfish person, but in that period, I was so selfish. I was like, this is my time to get back to where I want to be. I want to rebuild my life for me and my kids and nobody else. This is my time. So I think my resistance was coming from a place of being selfish, because I feel as though when you come into a relationship, then you also have to navigate and you have to make sacrifices.
Of course.
So that meant
time being a big one.
And I also give a lot to my partner. My partner is...
Do you?
Yes. So I knew that going into a relationship that I would have to sacrifice time, not only in business, but also I could move a lot quicker to get to where I want to be in my business world, as opposed to being in a relationship. So yes, there was a lot of resistance around coming into the relationship with you.
So back to the original question that we had, and we were going to answer together. What do you think has helped us to build the solid foundation that we do have now? I think that was 10, 15 minutes ago. We said that. We got off on a tangent, but we came back, and that's all that matters. Yeah. But I think that's a really good thing to talk into, because obviously, when it comes to coming into fresh relationships, not even just fresh relationships, like if you're in a relationship and you're finding that things are a bit rocky, like look at the foundations that you've built and look at what you're currently doing. So I guess for you, what have been the biggest things that have helped you to feel safe and secure within this relationship? Because that's what it comes down to, right?
Well, to be honest, again, it's reflection within what I wanted in a relationship. I looked at my past relationships, not even just my past relationships, but me as a human being, the way that I showed up. And if there was things that I was like, okay, that needs to change because I'm attracting what I don't want. So sometimes I was so like, it's like you do it without even thinking. So the question, what was the question again?
What have been the biggest things that have, I guess, helped us to build a solid foundation within our relationship?
And I just think that comes down to knowing exactly who I am. And because I don't have to change anything. Like the way that we show up, like speaking from my experience is like I am just so authentically myself that I don't have to change anything in this relationship.
Yeah, you get to show up as you.
Yeah.
I guess if I can talk into it, the biggest thing for me is communication. But also, like, the thing is, like, when we do, you know, not even butt heads, we don't really butt heads at all, but like when we might not 100% agree on things, that, you know, it's we were able to communicate, we're able to navigate that. And that's a beautiful thing. That's something that a lot of, I think, relationships, mature relationships still lack. Like, I look at my parents and the way that they would communicate was, you know, argument. And that was like, for me, I saw that as being like, you know, either run away or you want to stay and fight. It's like, you know, anxious avoidance sort of dance that happens within most relationships. So the thing for me was the way that we have been able to communicate and just lay everything out on the table without being judged. That also comes from a certain level of maturity and emotional intelligence, I believe.
100%. It's from doing the work. I would not be able to show up in this relationship the way that I show up for you, even probably a year, 2 years ago. Like, I've done so much work on myself. Now I know exactly who I am. And now I know how to show up for somebody else as well.
Yeah, well, I guess we can leave it there for this episode. I think that's been a cool little intro. We definitely dove into our relationship. And I guess, you know, it's one of those things we won't reveal everything in the first episode.
Hold the cards tight.
That's right. But I mean, what we want to try and aim to put one of these out every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So if you love it, give us a follow, give us a share if you think there's someone that would take something positive from these conversations. I guess the intention behind this is just to share real conversations from two real people, openly or authentically, just to, like we said, try and have a positive impact on the lives of as many people as we possibly can.
Yeah.
So we're going to get some guests on. We're going to talk a bit about our story. We're going to talk about some other cool projects that we're working on, like Vahara retreats.
Yeah, that's
which I won't
exciting.
speak too much into right now. We'll
I
talk more
speak
about
that.
It. No, next episode. We'll leave that one on the next episode. So Vahara retreats is something that's going to be, I guess, a really beautiful thing that we can bring to the world to help with other people in their healing journey, whether it be men and women that have, you know, struggled, let's say, you know, to find themselves, to come back home to themselves, right?
I love that.
I do too. Well, babe, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. See you on the next episode.
See ya.